Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Crossing Online Service. My name is Andrew, and I'm so glad you're joining with us today. Now, this week, 10 years ago, I got a phone call that would end up changing my life. I got a phone call from Tim Selleck. If you don't know Tim started the Crossing way back in 1988. Well, he called me because he was looking for someone to hand over leadership of this local church. And we got connected to each other. Now, at the time, my wife and I, we were living in Chicago, Illinois, a place where we had spent our entire lives. We grew up in Illinois. Our families lived in Illinois. Our kids were born in Illinois. Our friends were in Illinois. But on May 21st, 2016, my wife, Melissa, and I, we sat down and we began a conversation with Tim that would eventually lead to the biggest change in our adult lives. You see, within a few short months, we would move across the country. We would leave our families back in Illinois, our friends, our amazing church community that we loved, and then maybe most importantly, we would leave the greatest baseball team of all time on the planet, the Chicago Cubs, as we would move to Southern California. Now, I don't know the last time you moved, but moving is stressful, especially when you have two very small kids. On top of that, I don't know if you've noticed, but things out here in California, they are expensive. I mean, Chicago is expensive, but out here in Southern California, it is next level expensive. On top of that, we didn't know anyone out here. And I'll tell you, making friends as an adult, it's kind of weird. It's hard. So the summer of 2016, our entire lives changed. We took a risk, we embraced change, and I'll tell you, we fell in love with this community from day one. I mean, we love the Crossing. We love the neighborhood in which we live. We love the weather out here. We love it. And I will also tell you, though, that there were some challenges that we faced that we never saw coming. You see, change is hard. It's complicated. And my guess is you are so aware of this in your own life. I mean, maybe for you, it wasn't a move, but a new job. You spent 20 years in a company, but now that job is gone and you're in this new company, new role, and it's exciting, but it's a big change. Or maybe you just graduated college and you're starting your first real job, and it's the first time you don't have summers off anymore. I mean, I don't know if you remember that change, going from getting 2 months off every summer to only 2 weeks a year vacation. That is a big change. You see, change can be hard, and change sometimes it blindsides us. I mean, maybe you're dealing with the end of a relationship right now that you thought would go the distance, or maybe you're suffering a loss of a loved one. Change can be hard, it can be painful, and also change is unavoidable. I came across a study recently that estimated that the average person goes through one major transition every 2 to 3 years. Meaning all of you watching here today are either in a major life transition, leaving a major life transition, or about to enter a major life transition. You see, change comes for us all. I mean, I'm personally feeling this right now. This is a picture of my oldest son, Evan. He is graduating from 6th grade here in a couple of weeks. And in our school district, the end of 6th grade means a transition from elementary school to middle school, which may not seem like a big deal to you, but I'll tell you, it's a big deal to me. Because it means my sweet, wonderful little boy is turning into a teenager. This is a big change in our family. You see, change comes for us all. And what the research shows is that change takes a massive toll on us. The most current research I found reports that major life transitions lead to higher levels of stress, anxiety, grief, depression, and relational strain. And this is true even of changes that we view as positive. Let me give you an example of this. Retirement. Most people spend decades looking forward to retirement. But what research has found is that when people enter retirement, 30% of people fall into serious depression. The average retiree sees their health decline quickly and their risk of death goes way up. Why? It's because change is hard. Or maybe right now you're awaiting the birth of a brand new baby. I mean, kids are the best. They are such a blessing. And I'll tell you, having a baby in your house is a big transition. Introducing a new baby leads to a 20% increase in one or both parents struggling with depression. A new baby adds relational strains. 67% of couples share that their relationship struggled for the first 3 years with a new baby. On top of that, if you happen to have a child with specific health needs or maybe a special needs child, that brings a whole nother set of challenges and complexities. Change is hard, change is unavoidable, change comes for us all. So today, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna look at how do you and I navigate change? How do we lean in during seasons of major life transitions? And to do so, we're gonna look at a story from what's known as the Old Testament. That simply means the time before Jesus. So we're going to be in Joshua chapter 1. If you got a Bible, I want you to turn there, and I'm going to give you a little backstory here. So the people of Israel have been enslaved for 400 years. And then God led a man named Moses. Most of you will be familiar with that name. God uses Moses to free his people from slavery in Egypt. And so the Israelites, they leave Egypt and they travel for the next 40 years through the desert. Now, as they're going through the desert, God chooses to use Moses to provide for every need. You see, God uses Moses to provide water when they need water. God uses Moses to provide food when they need food. When the people are attacked by enemies, God uses Moses to protect the people. Moses ends up being probably one of the greatest leaders of all time. In fact, we get this amazing description of Moses. Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 10. Here's what it says. Since then, no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, who did all those signs and wonders the Lord sent him to do in Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all the officials in the whole land. For no one has ever shown the mighty power or performed the awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of all Israel. Meaning Moses is the greatest of all time. He is George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Martin Luther King all rolled up into one. And then one day, Moses leads the people to the shore of the Jordan River. Now, a river that will mark a major transition for the people. You see, on this side of the Jordan, all they have known is slavery and living in the desert. But on the other side is their new home. So the Jordan River here becomes a transition moment where they will leave their old life and they will enter a brand new season. They even call their future home the Promised Land. And so here the people are. They are on the brink of the biggest change they will ever experience. And then Moses, this great leader, he dies. So now add to everything else, the greatest leader, the prophet the people have ever known, he's gone. I mean, you want to talk about a season of change, this right here, this is it. Which leads us to Joshua chapter 1, where we are about to get a front row seat to see how people navigate major life change. So today, hopefully by now you found Joshua chapter 1. We're going to jump right into chapter 1, verse 1. Here's how the book begins. It says, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord. Now, this word after, it communicates a period of time. It's not like a moment, it's more like a season. So the implication here is that there is a time where the people, they pause and they grieve the death of Moses. In fact, at this time in history, people would stop everything and grieve for someone like Moses for 30 straight days, which I know to many of us, this sounds crazy. I'll tell you, as a pastor, I do a decent amount of funerals. And for most of us, when it comes to loss, we try to shorten the grief process as much as possible. I mean, we'll show up at a funeral, we'll wear the dark clothes, we'll sit for about an hour. We may even cry some tears. But then for most of us, it's time to move on. We head back to work, we get on with our lives, we just keep going. And we don't just do this with funerals, we do this with everything. I mean, whenever change comes, whenever loss occurs, most of us, not all, but most of us, we do our best to push down, to minimize, to get rid of the feelings of grief as quickly as possible. For example, maybe a child of yours is graduating from high school this year, leaving for college. And you know this is a good thing. You know this means that you've prepared your child for the future, but you got these deep feelings of grief as well, don't you? And you know your home is going to be more empty. You know that your relationship with that child is changing. But what do most of us do when it comes to saying goodbye? We shed a few tears, but then we head home and we immediately busy ourselves with work or a project because why? We don't want to sit in the grief. So instead of grieving, you push through, you keep going. Harvard published some really compelling research on what happens to people when they suppress grief. Here's what they found. People who suppress grief are more likely to experience chronic stress, sleep disruption, anxiety, loneliness, depression. Their increased likelihood of sickness, increased likelihood of a stroke or heart attack. I mean, what the research has found is there is a limit to our ability to push through, to minimize grief. I love what Psalm 62 verse 8 says about God. It says, trust in him at all times. Every change, both good and bad. Trust in him, you people. Pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge. See, what we see in this verse is we can pour out our hearts to God. Let me unpack what this means for just a moment. It means that we allow ourselves to feel, to be sad, to live in those feelings that are beneath the surface. Now, I got to be honest with you, I am not very good at this. I grew up in an era where there was just this idea out there that guys need to be strong and tough and guys shouldn't cry. And so as an adult now, I'm learning this for myself. And what I'm learning is we can grieve even good things in our lives as well. For instance, if you're taking a brand new job that pays more, has better hours, shorter commute, and yet you still feel this twinge of sadness because you're leaving a team of coworkers you love, don't ignore that feeling. Don't minimize it. Don't tell yourself, oh, this is stupid. No, allow yourself to grieve. Pour out your heart to God. I mean, you want to learn how to navigate change? Here's the very first step. Allow yourself to grieve. Pour your heart out to others and to God. When my wife and I moved from Chicago to Southern California, it was about 90% excitement, about 10% grief. And that grief came because we were leaving some things we loved. And I'll tell you, my natural tendency in that season was to try to minimize that 10% and only focus on the good, the 90%. But eventually, here's what I learned. It's okay to be excited and to grieve during seasons of change. It was okay for me to be sad, to miss my family being nearby to help with my kids. It was okay to miss our friends who we had known for decades. You see, grieving is a natural part of change. Now, in this passage, we are looking at the Israelites. They grieved Moses for 30 days. Now, does that mean that for 30 days we're allowed to grieve, but then not a moment after that? Of course not. 30 days in this passage was a literal length of time, but it also represents a season of grief. The people spend real time acknowledging all the good that happened over the past 40 years, all the ways God provided for them in the desert, all the ways that they had just seen God show up. They grieve all of that for a season. But then, I love what happens next in the story. Verse 1 again, it says, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide. Moses, this great leader, he's gone. But here's what we find. God's not done yet. And God chooses to speak to this young guy by the name of Joshua. And in verse 2, here's what we find. God says, Joshua, I have a mission for you. And here it is, verse 2. God says, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people, get ready to cross the Jordan River. God says, get ready. God says, I got a purpose, I got a plan. And it begins with this. Get ready. Get ready because change is coming. Now, I'll tell you, this is a big task for Joshua because most people, they are resistant to change. There's this leadership consultant by the name of Price Pritchett, and he has concluded that about 30% of people generally will resist any change. I mean, if you want to change the smallest thing, these are the type of people that will resist it. I mean, you want to go somewhere new for lunch? This is the type of person that they will complain the entire time about the new place. Or this is your coworker that just refuses to adjust their schedule to change the meeting time. It's the person who loses it when the grocery store moves things around. I mean, 30% of people will generally resist any change. Now, he's also found that 50% of people are hesitant about change, meaning that they're more unsure. They aren't really excited about change, but they're at least like a little bit curious. And then here's what Pritchett found. He found that 20% of people, they are open to change. These are people that see change as an opportunity. So which one are you? Well, here's one easy way to know. When your phone updates and everything looks different, how do you respond? Do you get angry? Do you complain? Do you try to figure it out? You see, for most of us, change is difficult. Change is complicated. And the message God has for the people is get ready. It's prepare yourself. Get ready. Let me unpack this for you. 2 weeks ago, I ran the OC Marathon. Now, I know some of you hear this and you think, wow, Andrew, that's impressive. You must be fast to run a marathon. But I'll tell you, I'm not fast. And I'm reminded of that actually every year at the OC Marathon because there is this person who runs the entire marathon in a bear costume. And every year I watch as this guy flies by me. I mean, this is last year. I saw him and snapped this photo, and it's a little blurry because he was going so fast as he passed me. And then the year before, I watched as this guy, he passed me again. I mean, so I am not fast, but I do the marathon every year. And here's what I do. I have a season where I get ready for the marathon. I prepare. I don't just show up and run. I train for it, meaning I wake up early. I run multiple times a week. I spend money and buy good running shoes. I learn to go to sleep earlier. I eat healthier because I know if I want to be ready for the marathon, I got to train. I got to get ready. I got to be prepared. Now, for us, here's what that means. When we navigate change, first, we allow ourselves to grieve, but then second, we get ready for change. Now, for the Israelites, getting ready means gathering their things, preparing to cross the Jordan River. It means increasing their awareness that they might get attacked by enemies. So they got to put a ton of time and energy into getting ready for this change. And I'll tell you the same is true for us. We can choose to get ready for change. And let me just highlight you for a moment, you listening to this message. I mean, this right here is a great start. You are thinking already about change just by listening to this. Or maybe you're engaged and getting ready to be married. I mean, if you are, congrats, I'm excited for you. But let me also encourage you, get ready not just for your wedding, but for your marriage. Now, I want to be clear. This doesn't mean we don't get ready for our wedding day. Most people, they spend a ton of time and energy focused on their wedding day, don't they? I mean, most couples, they spend tens of thousands of dollars on their wedding day. They put thousands of hours into making sure that day is perfect, which makes sense to me because weddings are celebrations. They are a big deal. They are worth investing in. And I want you to know what's even more important than your wedding day. It's every day that comes after. You see, your marriage is a major life transition, and you need to prepare for it. One of the things I decided to do years ago is that I won't perform a wedding for a couple that doesn't do premarital counseling. And the reason is because getting married is easy, but living with another person is a big life change. And if you aren't prepared, the odds of that relationship lasting and going all the way to like the end of your life, they go way down. And so if you're engaged, we do premarital here at the Crossing. We also refer people to see Christian counselors because we want to help you get ready for one of the biggest life transitions you'll ever encounter. Now, most major life transitions, they also come with a financial cost. I mean, getting married can be expensive. Moving is expensive. And sometimes unexpected changes can also be expensive, like health struggles or maybe a job loss. And so the Bible, it actually helps us prepare for this, to get ready. The Bible has some really clear instruction about how to handle our finances. It's called the 10-10-80 rule. You see, we take our first 10%, it's called the tithe, and we give it back to God through the local church. And the goal here is just we put God first. We put our trust in Him. The second 10% we save. We store it up for the future because none of us know what the future holds. I love what Proverbs 21:20 says. It says, the wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. The idea here is wise people prepare for unexpected change, while fools, they don't give any thought to the future. So we give back to God, we save, and then we live on the rest. Why? Why does God tell us to do this? Well, it's because God knows that change comes for all of us. And He wants us to be prepared. He wants us to get ready, to trust Him in it. On top of this, we also prepare ourselves for change spiritually. We can stay strong in the knowledge that when change comes, God is always with us. Here are some verses that I use during seasons of change in my own life. Romans 8:28 is one of my favorites. Here's what it says. It says, and we know that in all things, all changes, both good and bad, difficult and easy, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Or this one I find really powerful, and it feels like, when it feels like everything is changing around me, Hebrews 13:8 is a verse I go to. It says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. You see, lots of things change in our lives, but one thing does not, and that's God. He is the same always. Now, when I have been in big seasons of change, the verse I most often use is actually a verse repeated here in the story of Joshua. It's Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. God says to Joshua, he says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I love this because God says, be strong and be courageous. But notice this. God doesn't say, hey, Joshua, be strong and courageous because you're so talented, you're so special, you're so great. No. He doesn't say any of that. He says, hey, be strong and courageous because God, I am with you. You see, wherever change leads you, God is there also. So be strong and courageous. Why? Not because you're special, but because God is with you. And he will be with you wherever you go. Get ready, God says. Prepare yourself. Be strong and courageous because change is coming. And God says, I'm going to see you through it. And so that's exactly what the people of Israel do. They prepare. They gather their stuff. They get ready. And as they navigate the next season, they face this unexpected challenges and they face hardship after hardship. But here's what they find. God is always there with them. In fact, the first thing the people have to do is they have to cross the Jordan River, which it's no small lake or stream. This is a full-on river. But God shows up, parts the water, the people cross, and then this fascinating thing happens. Joshua chapter 4. It says, when the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan. God says, go. Have a few people gather a bunch of stones from the center of the river, which is odd, right? And then God tells them to create a pile of the stones. It would have looked something like this. Then, verse 6, God tells us the reason for this little mission. God says to Joshua, he says, hey, in the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial for the people of Israel forever. God says, hey, when your kids ask what happened, tell them. Share the story of how you stepped out in faith, how you trusted God, and how you listened, and remind them that God shows up. So God tells Joshua, hey, mark this moment. Which was true for the Israelites. They needed to do this thousands of years ago, and it's true for us as well. You see, when we experience change, it's important to mark the moment. When I moved out here to California, there was a specific Sunday where Tim, our founding pastor, he handed over leadership of this church to me. It was this incredibly special moment where we honored Tim and celebrated his leadership. We told stories of how God used Tim in this church for change and so much good. And then in the service, there was this moment where Tim gave me this red baton right here. And it just symbolized the passing of the leadership baton. And I'll tell you, it was this incredibly meaningful moment for me because it reminded me of this big season of change. And I'll tell you, every time I look at this baton, it reminds me about how God showed up. And through my years of leadership at this church, every single time, God provided. And so this baton, it marked a moment for me. And so I want to encourage you in moments of big change in your life, mark the moment. If you have kids, mark key milestones in their lives. I'm doing this with my oldest son right now as he transitions to be a teenager. It can be as simple as taking a photograph. In fact, one of the things we do here at this church that I love is when it comes to baptism. You see, baptism is a way we spiritually mark the moment of God's grace and goodness, how it enters our lives, how God takes away every mistake, every sin. Everything you do and have done, God forgives. And so to mark that moment, we baptize people because it reminds us, man, faith is not about what I do, but it's about what Jesus did for me. It's why baptism is a huge celebration here, because we want to mark the moment. In fact, one of the cool things is the weekend this video airs, we are celebrating baptism because we want to mark this moment for every person who has experienced the power and grace of Jesus. You see, change comes for us all. Change, most of the time, it will involve some challenge and difficulty, and change, it's rarely simple. It's rarely easy. But here's what you and I can do in seasons of change. First, we allow ourselves to grieve. Second, we get ready for change. And then third, we mark the moment because we know God is with us in it. Now, before I close, I want to speak specifically to those of you watching today and you are in a season of major change in your life. And you might be dealing with some fear, some uncertainty. If change or transition is something, especially that you didn't plan or weren't hoping for, I want to share a quote with you. And it might be these exact words, the reason that God brought you to this video today, because you need to hear them. And this quote is by an author by the name of Max Lucado. Here's what he says. He says, God is unchanging. The weather changes, fashion changes, even change changes. God has not changed and cannot and will not change. You see, the promise here is that the same God who led the people of Israel into the promised land, that led Joshua, is the same God who's leading you today. You see, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so today I want to close with an opportunity for you to experience that God at work in your life today. Let's pray. God, we thank you for your grace. We thank you for your goodness. And God, change comes for all of us. And so today, God, I pray that you would allow us to have the courage to step back, to pause, to grieve. God, help us to get ready for whatever change is coming our way. And finally, God, help us to mark these key moments in our lives. And God, for some of us, maybe that moment is today, where for the first time we're understanding your grace and goodness, how it speaks to us, how it comes into our lives. And so, God, for those of us who need your grace and forgiveness, God, we accept your gift of your Son, Jesus. We love you. We thank you for the forgiveness you offer. We pray this in your Son's name. Amen.